Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming along to my presentation. Hopefully you can hear me okay. We just went through some tests, so I think that's all right. So today I'm going to talk about my latest world, you could say. I'm still very much in the ColdFusion world, but I'm also very much in the blockchain world and distributed ledger, technology world and cryptocurrency world. So I'm going to talk about those things this morning and how they relate to ColdFusion and how ColdFusion is as relevant as ever to that world. I'll explain why. Before I get into the presentation, though, I'd just like to thank Adobe very much for supporting ColdFusion. I've been with ColdFusion, as I'll go back to in a minute, since version 1.54. which was the earlier days. And obviously we had ColdFusion conferences there quite regularly. And that we didn't have that many when Micromedia had ColdFusion. That's not a complaint. We were part of their conferences, but thank you once again. I won't go on too much about this, but thanks Adobe for having dedicated ColdFusion summits again. It's really a marvelous thing. Okay, so I'm going to go into a little bit of my history and a little bit of relative points in that lifetime. I was pretty old to get into technology. In actual fact, it was like a career change when I was 40. So anyway, that's by the by. So I started getting really interested in technology actually before the web was particularly popular. You know, it was in those days of things like Archie and Gopher and these peculiar sort of adjuncts or predecessors is the right word to web technologies. How I ended up getting into technology is I'll give you a shortened version of it here. I was working in England. You can probably tell I'm from England originally. I was working for British Leyland, and they just decided in the truck division, decided to start fitting Cummins engines. Talking to one of the Cummins people one night in a bar over a beer, which has been another earmark of my life. And he got telling me that they'd got this excess stock problem, part stock, and didn't know how to deal with it. So that lit a sort of a fuse in me in a way, and I started looking for things. And at first I was looking at bulletin boards, because really that was the only thing that was out there in any significance in those days. And it turned out I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to take their database, because I'd already been a database developer. I wanted to take their database and make it available through something else, so that people could look at the excess parts stock live, basically. So I started looking at bulletin boards, and as a result of that, I ended up at a conference in, I think it was Colorado Springs, called BBS-Con, which was bulletin board, you know, BBS, bulletin board systems, probably, services. Anyway, I ended up in a bar again one night, and this group of people talking about this thing called the web or cyberspace. And the funny thing is, I'd heard of cyberspace from a completely different perspective, from a British group called the Hollies, and I think it was Graham Nash, who later ended up in Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, was talking about cyberspace once in some article, and I didn't really know what it was, but it piqued my interest. Anyway, cut a long story short, I couldn't afford what I realized I needed, which is a web server, after talking to these people in the bar one night in Colorado Springs. So I ended up looking at things and realizing it cost me a fortune to get a Unix system and a web server, because that's all that was available. And fast forward a bit, I ended up at a conference in San Francisco, and there I was introduced to O'Reilly website, O'Reilly being the book people. And O'Reilly website was the first commercial version of a web server for Windows. And I thought, oh, thank goodness, I can probably afford it. So I bought it and then installed it and so on and so forth. And bundled with that version of I think it was the first version of O'Reilly website, was this thing called ColdFusion, which the name caught me eye, because I thought it was pretty bloody cool. Anyway, cut along story short again, there's a little red asterisk here. I started developing in ColdFusion at version 1.54, and I actually did create that database, the front end for the database for Cummins Diesel. And a few years later, well, not that long, a couple of years later, I had Caterpillar knocking on my door to do the same thing. So ColdFusion was revolutionary at that time, and it still is in so many ways, as I'll go into. So next milestone, then I became a CF developer in 1996. Then I was recruited by Lair in 1999 as part of a ColdFusion consultant team. There was, I think at the height of it, there was 35 of us. And I was actually seconded to the Spectra team, for those of you that can remember Spectra. You know, it was pretty revolutionary at its time as a CMS, and used, it was basically nested custom tags, which were difficult for end users to troubleshoot when there were problems. So, you know, I was on the team that supported that, which was ColdFusion. And then there was another team of consultants supporting JRUM, for those of you who remember that. So anyway, Macromedia eventually acquired Lair. I think they called it a merge at the time, and eventually Macromedia laid off, decided they didn't want to be in the consulting business, and they laid us all off. So in 2001, myself and another ex-consultant, Patrick Quinn, co-founded a company that we call WebApper. And what we were trying to do is fill the gap that Macromedia had left by not having consulting for ColdFusion. And JRUM still, obviously. So that's myself and Pat, and then there were some other people with another company started to do the sort of work we'd done at Lair and Macromedia. Our first client actually was Ernst & Young, so it was a good start. So anyway, fast forward again, 2015. 2015 is the year that Ethereum came out. My introduction to them, and there's another asterisk because it was another light bulb moment, you know, of euphoria, when I read the Ethereum white paper and realized, and really became a bit aware of blockchain at that time. I'd sort of heard of it before, but not paid much attention. And I'm not an investor type, so I hadn't bought any Bitcoin. There is you probably heard this before, but it's a fact. The first transaction on the Bitcoin network was 2 large pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoin. Just to put that in perspective, Bitcoin at the moment is sitting somewhere around $50,000 per Bitcoin. So anyway, the Ethereum white paper really opened my mind, because you know, I could see that we were going to be able to program on this thing called the blockchain, which really wasn't possible before. Except if you're writing the core technology, which is C++. That's what Bitcoin's written in. So anyway, the Ethereum thing really lit a fuse in me, and that's when I started looking really deeply into blockchain projects. So that's my history. Currently, I'm working on 4 or 5 blockchain-based projects, which I'm going to go into in some detail as we go through these slides. I'll name them here: Earth Dollar, FreeUS, Hyperledger, and Pi, and then there's a WFX project, which is really only just coming to be. We haven't really started working on it yet. So on we go. So I'm just reiterating, you know, in a visual way, some of the projects that I'm working on at the moment. I'll go into more detail on them all, but it's the Hyperledger projects, Pi, FreeUS, and Earth Dollar. Okay. So this is a really important slide. I'm going to try and move this. Oh, sorry, I went 1 slide too far. All right, that's better. Yeah, sorry, the chat window was obscuring the slide, which made it difficult to read, and my memory's not that good. So this is a really important set of principles. And this is what absolutely underpins both Bitcoin and Ethereum and some other blockchains out there. Another name for blockchain, by the way, which you may hear, is distributed ledger technology, DLT. So let me go through these, and I'll make a little apology here. There's going to be a number of slides. There's going to be text, but I've got something at the end which I think will be pretty interesting, which is a bit more exciting because I usually like to do practical stuff. So let's go through these, the 5 principles of an open permissionless blockchain. So number 1, anyone can take existing code and fork it. Forking is that which gave rise to Bitcoin Cash and Ethereum Classic and a lot more. So people forked the Bitcoin code, number 1. Number 2, it needs to be borderless. A borderless system knows no national boundaries whatsoever. It exists across the globe and is accessible regardless of where a person might be at any given time. Very important issue there. This and the next point neutral, a truly neutral blockchain does not favor any one individual or entity over another. It does not allow power and control to be centralized. Very important points. Just as a sort of an illustration of that, this year China decided to kick out all the blockchain miners, and that was a really, arresting situation because more than 50% of blockchain mining at that time was being done in China. I think it was close to 60. So there was obviously panic around what the heck's going to happen to this network, that over half of it's going to be gone. Well, the reality is there were some hiccups because of that, but the reality is Bitcoin survived and also prospered, reaching new heights since then. China also banned all cryptocurrency trading shortly after that. So we've got the biggest in terms of population country in the world kicking cryptocurrency, trying to kick it into touch twice. It didn't work. So that gives you an idea of how what's the word I'm looking for? How solid blockchain networks are, and how they're not going away. So let me finish this off. I'm sorry. So censorship resistant. This is point 4. A state of blockchain being resistant to passive aggressive attempts to censor it. That's really important too. That's another one of the reasons why Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a lot of other blockchains are not going away. Last one. Public. This is a distinction that seems to separate blockchain monetary systems from applications that will be used for corporate purposes, government work, military projects, etc. And these principles were coined by Andreas Antonopoulos, and I really recommend you to look his work up. He's written some books and he's got some really great YouTube videos if you're interested in more in-depth information about blockchains. And he does talk about Bitcoin a lot. So these are really important points. And the other thing that I'll stress here is this permissionless to join these sorts of blockchains. You either join them by buying cryptocurrency or by mining. Anybody can join. In other words, there's no need for permissions. So this is important, and from a technological standpoint and a financial standpoint, if any of you out there are invested in any of these, either these Bitcoin and Ethereum, as I wrote at the top, still here and powerful. There's some technology changes about to happen, some which have already happened, which are going to make them even more powerful. I would recommend you also to look up something called Metcalfes Law, and it relates to network effects. And both Bitcoin and Ethereum have immense network effects going on. So let me talk about Bitcoin for a minute. So around 2 years ago, the Bitcoin Lightning Network came about. And Bitcoin and Ethereum are both classed as layer 1 blockchains. So Bitcoin Lightning Network is a layer 2. So in essence, it sits on top of Bitcoin. And in a layer 1 Bitcoin, every transaction is done on the one at a time. You can say on the blockchain network, and I think the current time for transactions to complete is about 10 minutes, if I remember right. So what Bitcoin Lightning does, it transacts within its own network, and then it post to the blockchain, to the Bitcoin blockchain, once the transactions are finished. So you've got a channel of transactions that are going on. And the only two touch points to the main network is the beginning of the channel and the end of the channel. Other than that, the transactions are going on in the Bitcoin Lightning Network. What this has done is it's made it really tremendously easier to actually create applications that run on top of Bitcoin. And it's what's enabled, for those of you who know, El Salvador adopted Bitcoin as a what's the word I'm looking for? Not a sovereign currency. It'll come back to it anyway. In El Salvador, people are transacting on Bitcoin day in, day out, and doing things like going into well, it still is pretty impossible on the layer 1 network, the main Bitcoin blockchain. I could sort of liken that Bitcoin in this sense, the layer 1 network, as a bar of gold, which it'd be difficult to go into Starbucks and order coffee with, and the Lightning Network as basically fiat currency almost, although it's not, it's a million miles from it. But it's making it easier to use Bitcoin, basically, is cut a long story short. And that I'm really interested in that, the Bitcoin Lightning Network. So Ethereum, what's going on with Ethereum, that also is using, I should have said this before, Bitcoin, Layer 1 network and Ethereum use at the moment proof of work. And I'll go into those in a minute, what those different things mean. Ethereum is going through a change too. There's Ethereum 2's around the corner, and that's going to run not on proof of work, but on proof of stake, which is a much less energy intensive algorithm. And like I say, I'm going to go into those in a minute further on in these slides. The other thing to look at with with Ethereum, by the way, is what's called DeFi, or decentralized finance. There's immense amounts of things going on in that world. It's basically an alternative financial system, and it's gaining ground all the time. Another reason why these two aren't going away. Okay, so let's talk about ColdFusion at last. I've been developing blockchain apps for probably the last 18 months. And number 2 point in this, the error handling. It's absolutely bloody diabolical. It's meaningless. Myself and the team that are working on these blockchains have been sent off in all the wrong directions because of the errors don't give any direction, or even worse, give a completely wrong direction. Let me go back to item 1, which is really the most important in many ways on a day-to-day transactional basis. So almost all data needed to run a blockchain is still in traditional data stores, whether it be the SQL database, NoSQL, spreadsheets, whatever it may be. Most of the data needed, I'll repeat myself, is not in the blockchain yet. It will be eventually somewhere, but it's not. So the way that's handled is APIs and similar constructs, bridges. And the point is that I see as a really strong point for ColdFusion. And also handling item 2, because most of these issues that we've had in trying to figure out what's going wrong is at that touch point, the point between the blockchain and traditional data. I think ColdFusion can really excel in that capability. And when I get to the end of these slides, I'm going to share something with you that we're going to put that to the test. And then the last one is really sort of funny. In all the blockchain meetings I've been in, online, in person, whatever they may have been, as soon as I start talking about performance, everything goes silent. It's like, what the heck are you talking that boring stuff for when we've got all this incredible cutting edge, exciting technology? Well, performance is important. I mean, one of the reasons that blockchain transactions and Ethereum still are so slow is because of that nobody paid attention to what might happen if they got popular, or not enough people did. So that's another performance measurement of, again, these API touch points. That's something that ColdFusion can certainly help with. Okay, so I'm going to go through some of the projects I'm on in just a little bit of detail slide each. All of them, by the way, have some sort of beneficial ecological point to them. Those of you who know me know that I'm pretty heavily involved in permaculture, which is a way of putting more back in something than we take out. So that's really important to me. So Earth Dollar, actually, what they're setting out to do is turn financialization or investing on its head in this sense. Most investments, or many investments nowadays from financial institutions, are financing projects that are destroying or degrading our biosphere. Mining would be one example. Fracking's another. Logging. I live in Eugene, right in the middle of logging country, and it's really bad to see what happens when trees are logged. So anyway, Earth Dollar, using natural capital accounting, which is a known process, is going to be, people will be rewarded in Earth Dollar for improving ecosystems, basically, whatever that may mean, improving water, planting more trees. That's a big, as you can see here, as it says in the first two sentences, sorry, we're very involved with the Plant 2 Trillion Trees movement, which is the United Nations. So anyway, that's Earth Dollar, and the technologies we're using so far are the Polygon blockchain, and that's for ERC20 token. That's an Ethereum token, and Taurus open source wallet for mobile and applications, and MetaMask for web applications. Okay, FreeUS. FreeUS is a project out of New Zealand with certainly worldwide ambitions and also worldwide benefits. So FreeUS is sort of a UBI with a DAO, decentralized autonomous organization. I'm going to go into those in a minute and how important they are. So that's FreeUS. There's links to all these at the end of these slides, by the way. And technology chosen so far for FreeUS are the Proton blockchain and the Dfinity internet computer, Dfinity Foundation's internet computer. That's incredibly exciting. I'm going to go into that in a little bit more detail. Hyperledger, really interesting project. So Hyperledger is Linux Foundation. It's an open source suite of blockchains. The code for it, which is all downloadable. The big thing about Hyperledger is most of the blockchains are permissioned and are pretty much aimed at businesses who don't want to be permissionless. All the code for Hyperledger, repeating myself again, is downloadable. And if you want to get your hands dirty in trying something with coding a blockchain, layer 1 blockchain itself, Hyperledger is a great choice. Again, there's at the end of these slides there are links to the Hyperledger projects. And another notable point, Brian Beldorf who ran the Apache Foundation. He's heads up Hyperledger, so it's a very committed open source initiative, and one to really, repeating myself, to get involved in if you want to get some code. Okay, this is another really interesting project. So this came out of Stanford University, and it's a cryptocurrency, but it's a cryptocurrency you don't have to buy. All you have to do is be invited into the network by somebody who's already on the network. I joined pretty early on because it really interested me in what they were doing. It doesn't have a fiat equivalency. So when I said before that Bitcoin's worth about $50,000, there is no equivalency in Pi to fiat currencies. And the thing is that, like I said, it's free to join. You just need to be invited. They now have about 29 million users. They're not fully launched yet. When they do launch, what I believe is going to happen, it's going to be a trading network where people can use Pi as a currency to trade goods with each other. Not certain about the monetary aspect of it, whether it'll ever be equivalent to fiat or not. And what I do for that network, I'm not developing on it. I'm running a node, so that's something else you can do. So you can have Pi on your cell phone or your smart device. There's also a browser, and then you can run a node. Okay, so I'm just repeating this again about ColdFusion because that's what we're here to talk about. Obviously, it's our world. and it's a great world. So the first 3 points were there before. They are important to emphasize. So if any of your clients or you as a company owner or whatever it may be are getting involved or coming across blockchain technology, ColdFusion is definitely going to be a great friend to you for the reasons I said before. The next slide is a schematic of a blockchain project. And what I wanted to say about this is, I put here, ColdFusion could be used north and south in its next blockchain schematic. I'll show you what I mean. So this is a supply chain tracking project, which came out of Hyperledger. In actual fact, the Hyperledger blockchain projects. And it's, supply chains are pretty hot news at the moment, aren't they? I used to live in LA, and I have a friend who actually works in the port of Long Beach. Excuse me. And there's ships, you've probably seen it on the news, there's container ships up the wazoo in the ocean off Long Beach and Los Angeles because of supply chain problems. That's another subject. But what this is a blockchain project that was developed for supply chains. And I show this simply because, looking at the top of the graphic, where it says supply chain tracking, graph annotated smart contracts and APIs, and below cross-organizational disconnected data, connected structured data. All these things are things that ColdFusion can help us with, and complex queries. I can't stress that enough. It's really something that's become very obvious to me as I've gone through what I'm doing in blockchain. So now I'm going to go through the algorithms. These are the main algorithms used in blockchain that you're likely to come across. So proof of work, and it's also known as mining. And it says in a proof of work system, blockchain validators must take data from a block header as an input and continuously run it through a cryptographic hash function. As this gets more difficult, CPU usage increases, and that's why we get this bad press about the amount of energy being used. I will say one thing, that's important to note. The traditional financial systems happen to use energy too. I've actually done some work on the servers that are allotted to Wall Street, and those are gigantic. There's a lot of power being used, so it's disingenuous to say that cryptocurrency is worthless because of its power usage. Another big point I'd make, and the reason for its existence, after the 2008 financial crash, there was nothing to go to, was there? That was it. If we hadn't have pulled ourselves out of the mire, we wouldn't have a financial system. Cryptocurrency with decentralized finance is a complete financial system. So if we do have a crash of that kind again, we've got something to fall back on. So it's a worthy. It's not all hype. It's a worthy thing to have. So proof of stake, which is what Ethereum's about to go to. These are, as it says, a class of consensus mechanisms for blockchains. Excuse me, that work by selecting validators in proportion to their quantity of holders in the associated cryptocurrency. Bit of a complex thing, that. Unlike proof of work, proof of stake systems do not incentivize extreme amounts of work. Therefore, they use a lot less energy. I'll go through it a little bit quicker. Delegated proof of stake is pretty much similar to proof of stake, and these slides will be available, by the way, but these points are important. So it's basically what delegated proof of stake is a new evolution of proof of stake, but where users have a lot more, users of the network have a lot more say in what goes on. So that's delegated proof of stake. And then proof of elapsed time, this is an interesting one. It was introduced by Intel, and it's basically looking at the time sequences within the CPU to establish who's successful. And all of these different algorithms, by the way, I should say, relate to who succeeds in getting cryptocurrency for the work they've done. That's basically what it's about. This is something I wanted to stress. I really encourage you to look into this. It only came out this year. It's the Dfinity Foundation. So basically what Dfinity are trying to do, they're trying to recreate the internet. And I'm talking about everything that's in it, like mail servers and web servers and all the server capabilities of the internet, and trying to recreate them as a blockchain, a completely blockchain-based construct, as I say there. So it's recreating the internet as a blockchain-based entity using smart contracts as core enabling capability. Smart contracts, basically what smart contracts are, they are software communicating with software to create an outcome. So bills to coins to credit cards and so on. And you know, I call paper and coin our everyday fungible tokens, which they are in essence. So the main part here, though, is fiat money is a government-issued currency that is not backed by a physical commodity such as gold or silver, but rather by the government that issued it. It used to be backed by gold, but President Nixon took us off that. So you know, fiat is basically what we're using day in, day out. Central bank digital currency, CBDC. And as I say, it's just the same as fiat currency with no paper and coin, but it's centralized. And the worst thing about central bank digital currency, and they're definitely coming, is that the government or the entity that issues them will have complete control over all the monetary transactions that we make. They'll be able to see them. They'll be able to control them if they want to. I'm not a fan of, and if somebody says central bank digital currency is the same as cryptocurrency, it's not. It's completely different. So cryptocurrency tokens, there are two kinds of cryptocurrency. So tokens are often used to fundraise, and also there's this concept called ICO, which is initial coin offering. Typically tokens, cryptocurrency tokens, are used to fund those launches, and then they're redeemable after the event, and for cryptocurrency coins, which at this point in time are still largely being exchanged for fiat currency. Hence, Bitcoin, you know, having a $50,000 valuation. That wasn't the intention, incidentally. I would recommend you reading the Bitcoin white paper. It was certainly not the intention to have Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency beholden to fiat currency. But that's the stage we're at the moment. But there are breakouts where, you know, fiat is being more sidelined, and those are worth looking for. I think anyway. I'm excited by that. So that's a quick run through on. Sorry, I never said cryptocurrency coins. So basically, that's you know, Bitcoin would be a cryptocurrency coin, for instance. So it's not something that's being used to finance either crowdfunding or ICOs. It's being used as a coin, basically. So that's what cryptocurrency coins are. Again, these slides will be available. Yeah, I just put this up there again because it's really important. I'm not going to go through it again. It's really important to consider that you know what permissionless blockchains are. They are in many ways anarchistic, not in any way of a destructive way. As most of us know, that the financial systems at the moment are not in a very, the traditional financial systems are not in a very stable state at the moment. And you know, luckily, I'm repeating this, we have alternatives. So anyway, so this is a really important one, decentralized autonomous organizations, or DAOs. So basically what we're doing here, we're creating a governance mechanism that's not controlled by human beings. I think the middle part of this I'll read. So examples here of our current situation. That is, the examples here of could be managers that act on behalf of shareholders, or politicians that act on behalf of citizens. They do sometimes. In such steps, moral hazard occurs when one person takes more risks than they normally would because others bear the costs of those risks. More generally, it occurs when the agent acts on his own self-interest or interests rather than the interests of the principal, because the principal cannot fully control the agent's actions. So DAOs are a method of dealing with that problem. They are a very, very important part of the evolution of what came out of Bitcoin, basically. And FreeUS, which is the project I'm on in New Zealand, is very much centered on that sort of technology and fair governance, and we need that, in my opinion. Okay, so NFTs, I'm sure many of you have heard of NFTs and all the hype behind those. No doubt there is a lot of hype. There's still a lot of hype in blockchain. It's not as prevalent as it used to be, but it's still there. But certainly in NFTs, there's been a lot of hype. So I'm going to read this because this I think is one of the best descriptions I found of it. A unique digital identifier that cannot be copied, substituted, or subdivided, that is recorded in a blockchain, and that is used to certify authenticity and ownership as of a specific digital asset and specific rights relating to it. Yeah. Another transformational technology, my opinion, because tokens, NFTs, will be used to represent many things. I'm an artist. That's what I call myself. I paint and I write music. So, I've started a little project on the side of my own called Dfinity, which I'm going to use to, I know it's a shameless plug, I'm going to use to put my own NFTs out there. And just to amplify that for a minute, NFTs are a good thing from the point of view of artists, because the traditional art world, be it music or painted art, is very, very heavily controlled. It's hard to get in there. I have a friend who's an incredible musician, composer, producer, and she's been trying for years to make a good living out of it, and it's really difficult. NFTs will change all that, and they already are. Okay, now the exciting bit, I think. So, and the next slide will describe this. So there's an entity out there called Circle, and they have what is the world's second most used stable coin. And the next slide will describe what stable coin is. Many of you know, but I'll just reiterate it. Alaire was an entity created in Minneapolis, in actual fact, or hatched in Minneapolis by two brothers, Jeremy Alaire and JJ Alaire. They've gone on to still to be luminaries in the technology world to this day. I think JJ did some stuff for Microsoft on the Live suite of products. So I've done some blog posts on those actually. I'm hoping my voice keeps going. Let's see. So next slide. So what are stable coins? So stable coins basically, in essence, are a cryptocurrency that's stable. It's pegged, in this case, USDC to the US dollar. So the volatility isn't there, and that's appealing to some people. That's what a stable coin is, in essence. So it's a cryptocurrency, but not one that's volatile. And it's backed by, the other thing that's important, it's backed by assets. And usually the creator of the stable coin will declare what those assets are. So you'll see this name at the bottom, Jeremy Alaire. Well, Jeremy Alaire is the CEO of Circle. It sort of pleased me and blew my mind when I found out about that he's very, very, involved in this world. Very, very, he and JJ Alaire were just incredible luminaries. I mean, I really can't stress enough how world-changing ColdFusion was when it came out. I mean, it was just, it basically, in my opinion, created the dynamic web. I'm not saying it wouldn't have been created. There's little stories around that too, that somebody in Microsoft reached out to try and buy. a layer, you know, on a not a formal way, but you know, the brothers said they were having too much fun, and that just another bit of history there. That's how ASP came about, because Microsoft bought a small company in Hawaii, I think they were, and that's out of that came ASP. But let's get to the exciting bit. Well, I think it's exciting. So Circle is open source, and that's another set of code that's available to us. At least you know, the interactivity with it, with that network, with the USDC stable currency network. So myself, and another few friends are actually going to try and write something in ColdFusion that can interact with the Circle network. And I'm really excited about that, because, you know, what a wonderful thing we can succeed and show that ColdFusion can be used for blockchain related projects. And you know, the wonder of it being that it's you know, we're back to the Alaya days in essence. There were wonderful days, by the way, for anybody that I'm sure some of the people at the summit here will either work for Alaya or you know, spent time at the conferences. You know, there were great days, and you know, I do miss to an extent. I do miss, you know, going to conferences and meeting all the wonderful friends that I made over the years, and you know, just to circle, pardon me using that, just to circle back for a minute and just to reiterate something. ColdFusion, apart from it being you know, just immense effects on the web, it literally changed my career. It's because of ColdFusion that I was able to get into technology development in a meaningful way. And I really, you know, I'm getting to the end of things now. I really can't thank, you know, Adobe. I can't thank them enough because of the belief that they're putting into ColdFusion, and you know, with new versions, with all the new developments that go on. It's really marvelous, and you know, as I say, I can't thank them enough for that. It's a shame this isn't live, because, you know, now's about the time when I'd be you know, looking for any questions that may be up out there. So, you know, hopefully you're more than welcome to reach out to me at any time via email or wherever else I may be. I'm on Twitter. You know, I have a blog called JVM Whisperer, which, you know, focuses on JVM items. You know, one of the things, so going back to the Hyperledger project for a minute, one of the major platforms they have, it's called Fabric. One of the options in that is to have Java as a language for creating smart contracts. And I'm just about wakening them up in a good way to the fact that it's a good idea to tune JVMs. I'll just touch on that for a minute, because that's what I usually talk about. And I'll say something that I've been saying for years, ever since Alaya bought JRun, acquired JRun. That's where the Java stuff came from in ColdFusion. And I've got to state this, it's really important to know for everybody. There is no JVM. You go to Oracle and download a JVM and an SDK, it's absolutely impossible for it to be tuned properly. You know, because JVM, I could run a JVM on my phone that's next to me. And then those large Wall Street computers that I was mentioned earlier, they were running on Java too, at least at that time when I was working, helping there. So imagine something the size of a smartphone and a gigantic, I wouldn't say supercomputer, but gigantic computer. How in heaven's name can the core of the whole thing is the JVM. It's the heart of everything. Everything runs on the JVM. Everything in Java. So we have to tune them. There's lots of good articles out there as to how to do it. Charlie Earhart's done a lot of great work in that regard. Fusion Reactor is a great tool looking at those things for ColdFusion and for Java applications. You can use Fusion Reactor for Java too. So yeah, so again, just reiterating that, tune that JVM, it needs it, you know, and no, this is no criticism because it's not something that Adobe can do. The JVM that comes with ColdFusion it can't be tuned to what's going on because that's an application specific issue. We have to test the applications and use tools to see ColdFusion applications and use tools to see what can help us. So anyway, I'm getting close to the end here. I hope everybody's got something out of this. I hope I haven't been too much with the slides, but there's a lot of information in those slides that can be used after the event. I will say one last thing too, going back to Circle, Jeremy and Lair and Circle and the USDC stablecoin. If anybody out there is interested in helping us with that project to interface ColdFusion with Circle USDC stablecoins, please, by all means, let me know. Reach out to me. As I say, I'm on different things: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. And one last thing I would say: together, let's do what we can to help our biosphere. You know, my other world, my permaculture world, is very, very much focused on that, and that's why I'm so involved in the Earth Dollar project. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. I'm sure you will. There we are. Thanks. Bye-bye.